I'm Heidi Mandel. My sober date is November 10th, 2019. So I grew up in Thurmont, Maryland. I grew up with my mom, my stepdad, and siblings. I went to school in Thurmont at Catoctin High School. I briefly went to Heather Ridge in Frederick, but I came back and graduated there. My mom was very loving, enabling. I was very codependent and needed a lot of attention. So around 12, my grandfather killed himself, and I started to act out and do a lot of things for attention that initially I wouldn't have done otherwise. And I started going in and out of mental institutions. I went to my first rehab at 13, and that was just an ongoing cycle. I started having sex at a very young age and looking for love and validation in the wrong places. At around 15 to 19, I started with the harder substances. I met a guy in an outpatient treatment center, and he introduced me to heroin, where shortly after I got hepatitis C, and it just went on from there. When I was forced to get sober, like when I'd have to go to jail for a warrant, or when I'd just crash a car, DUIs and stuff, I'd be forced to get sober in jail. But there was no real attempts outside of treatment centers where I'd actually try to get sober. I mean, I had always had the gift of desperation, I think, but it just got to the point where enough was enough, and I knew that I had to change. I had been standing on street corners, living in bandos, getting very, very sick and having to go to the hospital a lot. I knew something had to give. So the very last night, November 9th, I crashed my mom's car uninsured again, and when the cops got there, I can remember trying to hide what I had on me. And when they got there to do the field sobriety test, I started to overdose on the side of the road. And when I went to court later, they were saying I was saying a lot of disgusting things to the police, offering them things to let me go. But that night I went to FMH, and they asked me to go to my 37th treatment center. And for this time, it was an all-women's treatment center, because I was telling them where I wanted to go. But when they said an all-women's facility, it was fairly new. I just said, okay. I had a long road ahead of me when it came to sober living. I started out going to Gale House. They had said I needed more treatment, and I knew I needed more. So I went to Gale House, and I stayed there for 7 months. And it wasn't easy with 20 women, a high turnover rate, and not everybody wanted what I wanted. But I just stayed. I sat still and stayed no matter how uncomfortable things got, which it did. And I just started going to meetings right away and just stuck with people who wanted to get sober. Well, I had heard about Up and Out several times and how wonderful of a program it was. So I went over there, and then my journey really started. And I can remember being held accountable right away when I got there. I was not doing everything I should have been doing. And they told me about it, which I needed, because I'm very sensitive, I'm very passive. I can remember being upset, but I also remember if I want this, I need to change. So that's what I did. So when I got to Up and Out Sober Living, I can remember having a lot of resources given to me, and I got a therapist right away, a psychiatrist right away. I had all the doctors I needed, and I just started healing in that way. But also I was given a chance to be a leader. Like at one point I had 2 jobs. I was doing my 7 meetings a week, and then Corey offered me the house manager position. And that was a few months after almost getting kicked out because I wasn't doing the right things. And a few months after that, I started working for the house, being the housing coordinator, and it just gave me a chance to be a leader, to know I'm worth it, to keep moving forward. Getting a fellowship is pushed on us, and I wouldn't have been able to get out of my comfort zone if it wasn't for Up and Out. That's huge, and I didn't feel like I could reach any of these goals. If you would have asked me 2 or 3 years ago, I would have never said I could do any of these things. So.